right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call this meeting of the Board of Directors of the Indian Wells Valley Water District open at 6 p.m. All right, let's see. Mr. Kersey, how would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Please be seated. Before we call the roll, as I'm sure you've probably already heard, you can see that Director Cordell's position has morning bunting. The director passed away last week, and I'd like to extend the condolences of the Board of Directors to his family. He was an excellent director, community-minded, and an asset to this board, and he will be missed. All right. Roll call.
President St. Amand.
Present.
Director Griffin.
Here.
Director Rutora.
Here.
Vice President Boyd.
Here.
Posting of agenda declaration.
The agenda for tonight's regular board meeting was posted on Friday, September 9th, 2022.
All right, thank you. Conflict of interest declaration. Vice President Boyd.
None.
Director Griffin.
None.
Director Rutora. None. And none for President St. Amand, although I must inform you that I am an employee of the federal government. However, my opinions and that statements I make this evening reflect my opinion only and do not necessarily reflect those of my employer. Thank you. All right, Section 6, public comments and questions. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the board on any matter not on the agenda and over which the board has jurisdiction. However, no action may be taken by the Board of Directors on any item not appearing on the agenda. Non-agenda speakers are asked to limit their presentations to 5 minutes. Public questions and comments on items listed on the agenda will be accepted at any time that item is brought forth for consideration by the board. When you're recognized by the chair, please state your name and address for the record. Do we have any public questions or comments? All right, very good. I see one.
Judy Decker, 625 West Ward. I have 3 things for you tonight. The first thing I'd like to say is I too offer my sympathies and condolences to the Cordell family and to you as board members for Chuck's passing. Well, I didn't always agree with him. He was a most community-minded person and always willing to pitch in and help, and he will be missed. Second, my other 2 things are more cheerful. As Vice President of the Eastern Kern County Resource Conservation District, I'd like to tell you, I've told you before, but I'd like to tell you again that we are having a native plant presentation. It will be Saturday, September 24th at the museum at 11 o'clock. And Emma Lynch from the BLM will be speaking about using native plants in the landscape, in the urban landscape. And I told you before, the RCD contracted with the Mojave Land Trust in Joshua Tree, and they have planted seeds and grown truly plants native to the Mojave Desert. So these are plants that you can kill by overwatering them. We will also be having some of the plants we've had in the past from the Mountain States Nursery in Glendale, Arizona. And for you, I'd like to give you a little boost there. That was a family-run business and operated for years. The owners retired. They could not find a buyer, And for their huge nursery, I've never been there, but I've seen pictures. It's a very huge wholesale nursery. The employees, I think, have bought it and are moving it. And it is unclear whether we will be able to get plants from them again next year. So look online. The plant list will be up shortly, but I invite you all to come to the talk to hear about such things as bladder pods, which we will have for sale, and other native plants. And if you recall, before the fire a year ago, June, there were many, many bladder pods that were in a band up there on Short Canyon. They cross the canyon and they're beautiful because they start blooming around Halloween and they will bloom all winter long. And the bees and other flying insects like them. The third thing I have is, Don, I read what you put in the paper about for people as to how to figure out their bill. I thought you did an excellent job. It was clear and understandable. I hope you put it on the web page, and I hope you, as a board, think about mailing it to each district customer so that they can say that because not everybody gets paper anymore, they can say that they have been informed how to figure out their bill. And I thank you for doing that. I have a friend who was on a master meter. Excuse me, she's now on her own personal meter because the landlord gave everybody personal meters. And she was very confused. And I gave her your article, and it really helped her a lot. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like?
Can I respond?
Yes, go ahead, Don.
Thank you for your comments, but I have to say my wife disagreed with you. She didn't think it was very clear.
All right.
Is that a country song?
Well, my name is Mike Neal. Speaking from experience, Don, I should just simply say, should have asked your wife first. So you'll know better next time. Okay, I'd also express heartfelt condolences to the Cordell family. It's always a huge loss when one of yours passes on. Chuck was an honorable man. He was obviously very, very community-minded, had a good heart for people. And he said something several times that I'd like to remind the gentleman on this board what that was. I think it's a very significant, although very short statement. He said, "I'm tired of paying fees to the GA." Okay, he said that numerous times. I'm tired of paying fees to the GA. And it wasn't just because we've been paying him for longer than he wanted. I think it's because we were paying them at all. And said, you know, he expressed that he didn't think that the water district was getting anything for their money, for which I heartily agree. And I've stated before that literally this district is the GA because you're the money source. You're the only place they get their funding from. And if the water district long ago, it did like Searles did, and it said, we're not paying, the GA would, they simply would not be running down this ill-planned road that they are right now, chasing money, trying to, get a pipeline planned to be built and obligate us for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of $1 million when there are things still that need to be looked at seriously. There's potential that we could bring our water use into balance in this valley without importing water. It would take some big changes, but we could do that and save people a lot of money. Next thing is I want to just kind of reemphasize, I'm not sure I made myself real clear, and Ms. Decker kind of gave me a lead in on this. The upcoming rate study, I think that serious consideration should be given to just a per 100 cubic foot charging structure. Or at the very least, much lower fixed rate fees, because this will encourage people who are your vast majority of your users, as has been stated before, who are down in the tier 1. Right now, they don't care how much they use because they're paying more for the fixed rate charges than they are for the water. So, why should they care? If you make it to where when they use less water, if they can figure out how to use less water than 900 cubic feet, but there are some, I know one guy said he uses a lot less than that. One person household who without trees and stuff on his property can do that easily. But he's not motivated to do so. So ask your consultant to present to you a charging structure that's just simply a linear charging structure. And I made the analogy, it's like pumping gas. You don't use any water, you pay nothing. Use 100 cubic feet, you just pay a little bit. And the guys that use a lot of water, they're going to pay a lot of money, like they kind of already are. But people that use a little water, they're still going to be motivated to use less water, and that's one of the things we really seriously need around here. If we had more conservation, could cut the water use in this basin by a couple 100,000 acre feet, would be almost to the point to where we don't need to even import water. And also, forgot to bring my check. I will bring the payment as payment in protest of our GA fees, which, as I stated before, and state again, are at least 150% more than what I'm paying for my water charge. And I don't like that, and there's a lot of other people in this valley don't like it either.
Okay, thank you for your comments. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on items not on the agenda? I don't see anyone online. So let's go ahead to item 7, consent calendar. So for the approval of the minutes and the payment disbursements.
I'll make a motion we approve.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, call for the vote, please.
President St. Amand,
Yes.
Director Griffin,
Yes.
Director Rutora,
Yes.
Vice President Boyd.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Item 7B, award of contract, temporary pavement replacement. Who would like to handle this? Renee, please.
In your board packet, there is a memo. We went out for bids for construction of temporary pavement replacement, trench pavement replacement. We did get one bid from Onstott Construction, Eric Onstott Construction, for $187,145. This bid was based on 250 tons of asphalt. We did follow our policy for formal bidding. We also sent the bid package directly to 2 other contractors that were on our bidders list, and we did not receive any other bids. Compared to the prices, last time we went out to bid, the costs have risen 27%. Not surprising, since labor and asphalt prices have risen over the last few years due to inflation and the cost of oil. So we've worked with Onstott for many years, and they're very aware of how we want the work performed, and they're easy to work with, and we recommend awarding the contract to Onstott.
Okay, are there any questions for Renee? Nope. Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public? All right, do we have a motion to award the contract?
I'll move. I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, then let's go ahead and vote.
I think it worked. It's gonna wait on Chuck.
You're not supposed to vote for Chuck.
All right, very good. The motion passes. Item C, Admin Executive Committee, proposed changes to standby policy. Dawn, do you want to handle that, or does Jason want to tackle that one?
I got it.
All right, thank you, Jason.
So in your packet, you'll find an excerpt from the district's personnel manual, which falls under the heading of standby pay. There have been instances in the past where personnel have worked what might be considered a double shift trying to repair a transmission line, namely Kendall or Springer. The most recent required staff to work into the start of the next shift. And for the safety of our personnel, staff is proposing that the following language be added to the section, which reads, for the safety of our employees, if an employee, through any combination of regular standby or overtime, works a total of 16 or more hours within the 24 hours on a day, which precedes a working day, the employee will be required to go home following the 16-hour or more shift, or as determined at the sole discretion of their manager or designee. If required to go home following the shift, the employee would be compensated at their regular rate of pay for the workday that they were required to go home.
Okay, thank you. Directors, do you have any questions for Jason?
I guess clarification. So if somebody works 16 hours and then they would get sent home for the next day of work, would they be compensated at time and a half or in double time?
They would get all the pay that they are entitled to for that day. The next day that they're required to go home, they're getting paid for that day as well.
As a safety issue.
Yeah.
I think I'm in favor of the intent, but quite frankly, I didn't follow the grammar. Two things, I guess, bothered me. One was the use of the term 24 hours and also a day. And it seems to me we should clarify that it's either 24-hour period or a day or both. But there could lead to some confusion, it seemed to me. Also, I noticed that in one place it says that a person after 16 hours is required to go home, and then it says, well, if his supervisor tells him he has to go home, and it seems to me that it ought to be clear, a little more clear than it is. I mean, I'm assuming that the intent is absolutely correct, but it's confusing.
The reason or the rationale behind leaving it to the discretion of the manager or supervisor on hand is that, and I would speak from personal experience working with Searles Valley Minerals, they have the same sort of policy with the 16 hours. But if you're close to buttoning up a job, let's say there's just a half hour more work to do, it doesn't make sense to send a crew home and bring a whole new crew in to finish up a half hour's work. I'm using it as an example, but.
Oh, no, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I agree with what the intent is, but it either should say that, I mean, it does say you're required to go home after 16 hours. Then it says, well, if it is at the prerogative of the supervisor, I was thinking, and it's just, in my mind, not, and I agree with what you're saying, and I don't.
Clean up the language.
Pardon?
Make the language more clear is what you're requesting.
Yeah, it needs to be clear. I'm not sure we need to wait another month to get it, all the grammar straightened out, but I think so that in the future, we don't have a misunderstanding between the people who are doing the work and the people who are doing the supervising, come into a difference of agreement. Well, I was supposed to go home because it says I'm supposed to go home, and the supervisor says, well, but I didn't tell you, it could be clearer.
Understood.
So as it reads now, it says the employee will be required to go home following the 16-hour or more shift, or as determined at the sole discretion of their manager or designee. So can I ask you do you have a suggestion for how that should read?
I'm kind of confused though, Stan. If it reads right now, a 16-hour or more shift, it's already stating that they could work more than 16 hours. But what they're trying to enact is if somebody works over 16 hours, they don't want them to come back into work 4 hours later for the next day because they
And
worked.
I totally agree with that.
Here's an example, I think, if I may. Works a, part of it, ... works a total of 16 or more hours within 24 hours on a day. You could argue that's redundant because every day is 24 hours, so why are you saying it twice? I think that's where some of,
Yeah, right. Well, unless that was the intent, either a 24-hour period or, but then a day always is 24 hours, so.
Could this be solved by adding the word may in there? May be required to go home at the discretion of their
Well,
manager or designate?
I think maybe using the words unless required, unless otherwise stated by.
we could
or something like
wordsmith it,
that.
or
It just seems awkward.
the board could still approve the intent of the standby policy that seems to be clear here, and we could make the revisions and make it more clear. I think I understand what you're saying, Stan. I think Jason, myself, and Don could do that if the board so chooses. That's all.
I would so choose.
Okay.
I would make a motion that we approve it with the changes that Stan's requesting at the discretion of the general manager and legal counsel.
I'll second that.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the public? I see we have 3 people who've joined us online. We'll give it a moment to give them an opportunity to call in if they'd like. Okay, is there any further discussion with the board? All right, seeing none, I call for the vote. All right, the motion passes with 4 ayes. Item D, board vacancy. Board to discuss and give consideration to the process of filling the recent board vacancy. Jim, do you have some guidance for us on this?
I do. Condolences to the Cordell family from my firm as well as myself. My partner and I both had the opportunity to work with Chuck, both from the Water District as well as some private matters for him, and got to see him in Bakersfield a couple times. He was a great guy, and I'm certainly going to miss him. And I hate bringing this up so soon, but we are on a time frame. And so with that, I'll just give a quick presentation. When there's a board vacancy, it's subject to in Government Code 17.08. It's not a hard procedure. Within 15 days of the vacancy, we're required to notify the county. Don and I will do that this week. The board members have 60 days from the date of the vacancy in which to select a new director. Since Chuck this is Chuck's first term, but the vacancy occurred closer than 130 days to the general election, so whoever you appoint will fill out Chuck's term. About 15 days before the board is going to make an appointment, you post and see who's interested. And then after the board makes the appointment, we would notify the county who that is. And that is the process. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
We have 2 months to select a replacement. Anytime during that period, 15 days before making an appointment, we need to post that there's a vacancy to be filled. And then we can state any requirements for people who are interested in submitting their name for consideration. Is that correct?
That is correct, and there is sufficient time for us to put the board in position to discuss and make the appointment at the October board meeting, if that the board wants us to do. That would be within the 60 days and would avoid the need for I believe, a special board meeting if you don't make the appointment in October, but we can go either way.
So sometime, go ahead.
I just had a question. So if we put out a notice and we get some applicants, would we not need to have a special board meeting where we could interview those applicants and then make a decision before the October board meeting? Could it work that way? Or after, but we,
Yes, you could certainly set up a process that you'd want to go through. I've been on the road and I haven't had internet, so I haven't had a chance to look, but we can certainly discuss a process for the board, and it may require a special board meeting, but that wouldn't be an issue.
okay. And then I have one more question related to this. I went to Chuck's house the day after he passed and spoke with his wife, and I'm very concerned, which her first words to me was, I'm worried about my health insurance. So is there a way that we as a board could keep his insurance in effect or do anything with that to where she doesn't lose her benefits? Because,
Let me look into exactly what the language is, Chuck. I mean, I can't answer a question for language I haven't reviewed, but I certainly will check into that.
okay,
Sorry, to answer Chuck, I did send Mrs. Cordell a letter. By law, we have to notify her of her COBRA rights. And I did explain everything in detail. I also called her and left a message if she has any questions to contact me.
okay.
So
So
she
it
does
would be a
have
COBRA
options.
thing then?
It would be a COBRA thing.
Okay, so can we add something to agenda now, or do I need to add it later on? Because I disagree with that she would have to pay a higher COBRA rate because it was not a termination or any.
Sure, I'm not, Chuck, since I haven't seen any of the language, I'd like to look at the language, talk to Lauren about it, and then I can get back to you and we can have a discussion. We're probably, just you and I.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. If we put out a notice for applicants, and there's more than one, I do believe we should interview all of them. Well, yeah, depending on how many there are, I mean, the top three or whatever, but I think we should interview, again, if there's more than one, we should at least have an interview, and we can decide how many, and if there's a dozen, although based upon the number of people that were candidates for this next election, it's not really a very high priority in anybody's priority right now. So, but I like Chuck's idea of having interviews.
Okay.
I would like to see us not put it, and I don't know what the legality is, but I think we should take the last people that ran for the last election and let those people, if they're interested, those apply, because then we know what the public wanted.
Appreciate that, but this is governed by a specific code section.
So we have to advertise.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, correct.
If you want to call somebody that filed an application 2 years ago, I don't have a problem with that, but we still have to comply with the code. That's all.
Right. I think the people who ran last time, if they were interested, they would apply.
They would probably apply,
Right.
correct.
So who's going to take lead for running that advertisement? Is that call of the staff, or do we need to?
Staff.
Yeah, and I think that we can send it out to you quick, Mallory. I think what's going to be in there, some of it's going to be pursuant to code again, but we can certainly kick it out to you guys.
Are there any guidelines as to what an application packet should include?
Not that I'm aware of. I've had board members, I've had boards that have just had people, fill out an application, and then they march them in and they interview them in an open session one at a time, and then they make a decision.
Okay.
So I'll be back in my office on Wednesday. I'll do some additional checking, but I think we have a discretion after we comply with the code.
All right, make some recommendations, please. So one last question. There's 2 years left on, a little over 2 years left on Director Cordell's term. They would be filling that entire period, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay, you mentioned in open session, we would interview people, or I guess I don't understand.
Is the interview open or closed session?
Yeah, that's the.
It may be an open session. I mean, this is not an employee. You're not hiring me. So, again, I'll check, but I think it's probably would be an open session.
Okay.
All right, so you have a couple of days to think about what you'd like to see in the application package and then inform Mr. Worth.
And again, I'll send a follow-up email to the board Wednesday or Thursday when I get back to
Okay,
town.
thank you. All right. questions or comments from the public regarding this board vacancy?
Yes, just things you may have already actually covered or in your minds at least. Obviously, the reaching out to the prior two candidates from the 2020 election who showed the interest to be on this board is probably first action. I kind of disagree with hearing the talk about, well, nobody wanted to run for this election cycle. People aren't interested. The board should act like that this is a very important position. In reality, this board is the most important board in this valley. It has been for some time, seeing as how if they can help right the water situation in this valley, it's a huge economic influence on everybody's life in this valley. So what goes on here is very important, and I suggest that you take out large, real easy to see and notice ads in both printed newspapers. I don't think there's a third one. And you've also made good use of Facebook. Mr. Zadiba, I suggest you make use of Facebook. And a lot of people look at stuff on Facebook that don't even read the papers. So if you do that, I think you probably try to reach as large an audience as you can. And I reached out to one of the former candidates, haven't got a response. I only did that this afternoon. So hopefully we'll get a response on that. And if you never know, if you put the info out, you might come up with a considerable sum of possible people who want to be on this board and want to influence life in this valley. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments, Mr. Neal. Is there anybody else? Any kind of additional discussion amongst the directors? All right, then let's move to the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, Director Rotora.
Thank you. The last GA meeting was August 10th. The next GA meeting will be September 14th. That's this Wednesday, 2 days from now. Stetson was authorized to prepare a water recycling Title 16 feasibility study for the Bureau of Reclamation at the special meeting on July 22nd. The Water District needs to keep track of what's going on here. We don't want the GA making assumptions without our input. A related issue is that the existing recycling study report has not yet been released. This is a critical need for the Water District, that is the water recycling, and we need to have continual communications with the GA at the staff level, which I assume is going on, but I want to make sure that we need to really follow this, because those recycled waters, acre feet, could be very important to us. The GA board approved a letter of intent at the July 13th meeting to purchase 750 acres of Table A entitlement for $6.4 million. To be clear, this is not the actual purchase contract. It is a contract or an offer to purchase the water. Multiple things need to fall into line before the actual purchase is accomplished, including an environmental review and approval. And this could get to be, who knows what's really going to happen with this, because water is a very sensitive issue in California. You never know what's going to happen. The process could take up to 6 or 12 months, is what the discussion was at our last meeting. There is also, by the way, a $2 million down payment required, which is refundable only under a very limited set of conditions. So we need to be mindful of that as well. The imported water, next subject, the imported water pipeline alignment study is underway. Provost and Pritchard was the contract awardee. This is another area that we need to ensure good communications between the Water District and the Groundwater Authority. I know there was a meeting scheduled for us to talk to them, which is good. But I want to make sure that it's not a one-way communication, that we really need to understand what is happening and how it's going to benefit us and provide, again, input, not just one-way communication. we need to get information from them as well, is what I'm saying, so we can evaluate what's going on. And other things in terms of programmatics is the Rose Valley subflow monitoring effort is scheduled to start this fall or winter, that is in 2022. And that's been ongoing for some time, but it's starting to actually look like we're going to get that started real soon now. In terms of financial activity, the GA Finance Advisor has recommended that the imported water bonding be privately offered bonds. So nothing new has changed there, but Wolf Hansen was originally expecting to provide the board with a firm commitment last August. Obviously, that didn't happen. I am not aware of a new date for when we do expect that to happen, but it could be still weeks, if not months away. Again, just because of all the things that have to come in line before anything can happen. Next subject under finances, I asked the general manager for a status on the transferring of the GA financial system to the new system. That is, early on this fiscal year, we talked about transferring from one financial system to another. Haven't actually had any status updates on where we are there. And apparently, according to her, it is in process, but she could not give a date as to when the official transfer was going to happen between the existing financial system and the new financial system. Under project activities and concerns, as you all know, SGMA has established 6 primary sustainability indicators. I believe the most critical indicator is the reduction of groundwater and storage. It's sort of a overarching for all of the various issues of the remaining 5 indicators. The GA has yet to be able to qualify a methodology to measure the change to groundwater and storage. The ability to measure change to groundwater and storage remains my primary concern. And I will be watching this very closely. Stetson has repeatedly stated that the newer approach will be released to the TAC at the end of the summer. My feeling is we're probably close to the end of the summer, even though it doesn't always feel that way when you walk outside. So that should be going to the TAC, Dr. Decker, and very soon. So I'm hoping that you're going to be watchful of that. Yeah, we appreciate your efforts, by the way, we really do. The upcoming GA meeting, we'll be discussing a schedule for the release of the next annual report. In my mind, the validity of any schedule, regardless of what it is going to be dependent upon the progress that is being made right now regarding the measuring the change to the water and storage. And so that's going to be a topic for the upcoming Wednesday discussion. And that's all I have. So I would be willing to entertain questions or comments either.
Are there any questions from the board or staff?
I have one. Stan, at the beginning, you mentioned that concern over the work that was going on regarding recycling and our involvement. Are we? I thought Creeker and Stewart were involved.
I'm not sure I'm concerned. What I'm just trying to remind everybody is that we need to be involved. And if we are, that we do need to be. But I know in the past, Creeker and Stewart has been, well, and so has Tim Parker,
Okay.
been involved in the original study on recycling. However, this is a separate effort. And quite frankly, what I was told at the last GA meeting is primarily a reformatting of existing information that came out of that recycling report to put it into the format that is required by the Bureau of Reclamation. Although there is going to be a contract let to somebody, and I can't remember the name right now, that is going to look into various advanced water processing techniques. I'm assuming this is the the final stages of the treatment because we've already looked at tertiary, I'm assuming. So it's the reverse osmosis versus whatever else might be needed before you can inject it into the ground. But I don't know, Don might be capable of telling us what our involvement is right now. Because again, this is a new topic, and we did not originally ask Krieger and Stewart to get involved in this aspect of it.
It seems prudent that we would.
Pardon?
It occurs to me it would be prudent that we would have them involved if
I
possible.
absolutely agree.
So what's the
But
issue?
this is a staff level thing. It's not going to come before the board. I'm not going to have any insight into it. So we're going to have to rely on our staff to keep involved and stay on top of it. Because again, there's 2,500 acre feet of recyclable water, and every acre foot is important in my mind.
Krieger and Stewart was invited to and did participate in a meeting with a regional board, the Lahontan board, with Stetson, with the city of Riverside, city of Ridgecrest's wastewater treatment plant consultant. And they laid out, they're starting the discussions with the regional board about what types of treatment we're talking about, what types of vetting has to occur, what type of pilot testing, and it's going to be a long road, but that discussion has occurred. Don, I don't recall what date it was about 3 weeks ago, I think, or 4 weeks ago when Dave sent you that email, kind of summarizing the meeting. But we are in communication with them, and we are working with them, and we're parallel with them. We're not dragging behind and trying to investigate things, and they're being open with us on those efforts.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Sure. Anything? No. Are there any questions?
I do have something just
Oh,
to
sorry,
expand
Don, go
on Director Ottora's report. Director Ottora mentioned a meeting with Provost and Pritchard, and I can report that we did have that meeting last Wednesday. Jeff Davis with Provost and Pritchard arranged for a web-based meeting on Wednesday. He originally said there were two purposes. One was to find out the district's projections for pumping going all the way through 2070, and then also discuss a connection point with the district's system. I just want to report during one of the outcomes, it was made very clear to Provost and Pritchard that the district has no interest in making a direct connection to our system. There are several concerns, one of which is just water quality issues. So I imagine they're going to take that discussion back to Stetson and to the Groundwater Authority. But we were very clear several times. We said we do not want a direct connection to our system. They have talked with us about coming up and doing a site visit. So I think on September 23rd, Friday, it's tentatively planned for them to come up here and take a look at the area, the route, proposed route for the pipe, and also to look at I guess the scope of their project is to look at connection point. So they want to fulfill that part, but it's been made very clear that we do not want them to make a connection.
Okay, thank you.
That was with district staff. Chuck Krieger and Dave Scriven were both on that meeting as well.
It was my impression that if we were to bring water up from the south, that it was already pre-processed water, that it wasn't raw, untreated water.
That's correct. It's potable water that is going to be pumped from
Okay.
AVEC. It's been treated.
But it would not be potable after being in a pipeline 50 miles and that small amount of water.
I think it depends on what level of chlorination you can maintain.
Correct. If
could-
it was mass chlorinated at that end, it might be by the time it was here and it was used.
Sure.
But if not, it would take more water to flush it to make it potable. Then it would be
Yes.
the benefit of using it, so.
And Stan, just because waters are potable, but if they have different water quality characteristics and TDS and other things,
No,
it can cause problems in a domestic system to introduce a different characteristic of water, even if it is potable.
yeah. And frankly, that was the reason for my comment on being involved, is that I want to make sure that we're having a two-way conversation and not just them asking us for information, we're giving it to them, and then we're not knowing what they're doing with it. So, yeah, I appreciate all that.
Yeah, no, I think, if we could just get Jason to be a little bit more vocal about his concerns, we do better. But no, it is a two-way exchange of information. So, and I think our messages were clear.
Yeah, well, I want to point out that chlorination is one thing, but with the water being in the pipe that long, disinfection byproducts are also another major concern.
Huge concern.
It just seems like it would have been beneficial to consult with the district before putting together the project scope and going out for bids, because again, we could have perhaps had them develop a different project scope rather than looking at a connection point with the district.
All right, anything additionally from the staff or the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Please state your name.
Yes, Mike Neal.
Thank you.
So I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't already, read the recent, basically it was kind of a report format in the news review about imported water entitlements. And it's one of those things like, well, I already knew this, but it just slapped me in the head again. So maybe it will other people too. Basically, it was stated that based on past information, and then I don't know, I forgot if this is the DWR or the State Water Resource Control Board, that basically says, here's the allocation of your water entitlement that you're going to get. They do this every year. Going back three to 4 years, it was basically like 10%. So what that says is the situation was to remain unchanged, which it very well may remain unchanged for some time. Like in the case of the Jackson Ranch / Dudley Ridge Water District, 750 acres, you're going to get 75 acre feet. So if the GA is saying, oh, we need 5,000 acre feet, and you get hit with a situation like that over a very long, just a few years, really, is what it amounts to. You needed to buy 50,000 acre feet so you could have your 10% and get enough water. So that makes the recycled water from the wastewater treatment plant even more extremely important to this valley, because every acre foot coming out of that we can use could potentially represent 5 to 10 times that much that we're going to have to go out and pay. I think in this case, Jackson Ranch was over $8,000 per acre foot. $6 million just for 750 acre feet, supposedly, which I'm going to say it's probably going to be a long time before we actually get that 750 acre feet if they ever do enter into contract to buy that. So, number one, the GA, in my opinion, screwed up the water allocation table big time from day one, and they never took into consideration the output of the wastewater plant whatsoever, and to say, we need 5,000 acre feet. Well, no, we don't need 5. We need maybe 2,500 acre feet, because it's been stated multiple times here by you guys, we're going to get 2,000 to 2,500 acre feet out of the wastewater plant. So, but they're charging right ahead based on that, what I think is entirely bad assumption, and looking for water entitlements to go buy out there at a very high price and potentially a really small return on what you're supposedly buying. It's like saying, I want to rent this 10,000 so that we don't have to import water. Gets us out of this it's just basically a financial stranglehold, and you all know that that's being put on this valley, and it's going to hurt the valley in the very long term quite a bit unless we get it right.
All right, thank you for your comments. We have another person in person.
More or less. I think some members of the public and others perhaps are confusing wet water with water rights. My understanding is the GA board has an opportunity to buy 750 acre feet of water right. That's different than 750 acre feet of water. And so that needs to be remembered. The other thing I have to say, Stan, is I appreciate your report. It's quite detailed. But I think you yourself have to remember that the water and storage that is ever shrinking is a concern. But along with that shrinking water supply, because this is a desert basin, is the increase in total dissolved solids. And people have been seeing that issue for quite some time. And I have a third thing. As a member of the PAC, the Policy Advisory Committee, I want you to have a heads up. One of the DWR items was a new communication and engagement plan, because the first plan was written specifically for getting the word out on the groundwater sustainability plan, the GSP. And now they want a communication plan on how to deal with the public and others on long term. One of the items that's in the draft plan that was handed out to the PAC last month, the very bottom of it has an issue of great concern. I view it as a violation of freedom of speech. So I want you to give you a heads up there. We do not have a final plan yet on that issue, on a communication and engagement plan. But if it comes out, I urge you all to read it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Decker, for your comments. Chris, do we have anyone online waiting to speak?
Sure do.
Go ahead, caller. Please state your name.
Hello, this is Renee Westalusk. I'm just wanting some re-explaining, if you could do it concisely, with the problems with the purity of the potable water coming from the AVEC pipeline that will be built from the California City connection. If you could clarify what the problems are, because I'm trying to follow the discussion, but I wasn't really understanding why the water would get contaminated by piping it that long of a pipeline.
Jason, why don't you go ahead?
When you disinfect water and it sits for a certain amount of time, there's byproducts that are created. THMs, for example, which can cause cancer. Those are the concerns that the district faces when importing this water.
So the water would be sitting for a long time before it was piped, and then sitting again after it's piped?
I think it's a concern that will have to be addressed, that it is something that's an important consideration regarding the treatment and conveyance of the water from AVEC. It's not that it will happen, it's that it could happen. And with proper chemical balance, you can prevent it from happening. Jason's the operations manager. He's keenly concerned with those types of byproduct development. And rightly so, it's a big deal in potable water systems in California, and every distribution system has that challenge. So I think his point is that, boy, we can't take our eye off the important component that is chemical byproducts of disinfection. The water's not contaminated. It's just that these byproducts without proper pre-treatment and conveyance can develop, and then you have to worry about how to get them back in compliance.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for explaining that.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay. Seeing none, let us move on then to item F, comprehensive adjudication. Mr. Worth.
Yes, as I've indicated before, there's probably not going to be a lot to report on for the next couple months as we go, but the last hearing we had with respect to the adjudication was May 20th. At that time, Judge Claster requested that he be officially assigned to the cases by the Judicial Council, which is what is required by code. We try to bypass that by way of a stipulation, and he wanted something more definitive. So we filed a stipulation with the Judicial Council requesting Judge Claster. All of the parties have signed it, including Jim Markman on behalf of the GA. So we're hopeful that that'll occur. It's just a matter of how long, and I won't give you an estimate on that. You'll recall that at that May 20th CMC, the judge stayed all discovery, so the case is kind of in limbo. The one area where we are progressing is with respect to service of the mailer. There's two classes of residents that we're looking at. One of them were known pumpers at the time that we filed the adjudication. If you went back to the complaint, you'd see there's about 100 named entities. That's pretty much who we knew and the GA knew was pumping at the time we filed it. There were some issues serving all of those 100 people, and we're in the process of identifying and serving the remainder of them. If Emily isn't done yet with that group, she will be very soon. I believe it's been by way of hand service on those, and it was like 40 at the beginning, and it's shrinking all the time. The other one, they're still looking at the larger group that didn't receive the mailer, trying to determine who would be in that class. Once that is complete, we will take that to the court and have an idea. Look, we're going to try to serve these people one more time in this manner, and then the judge would agree. Once we do that, then we would have completed service, and then we'd go at issue and move on. The next case management conference is set for December 2nd at 1:30. Although not related to the adjudication, everybody's aware that there are cases that were filed against the Groundwater Authority as well as by the Groundwater Authority with respect to the Mojave Pistachio action against the Groundwater Authority. Their motion to amend their third amended petition was granted, and the GA was given until September 16th to file their demur to the third amended petition. They filed a demur to all of the petitions so far, and they've been successful. So Mojave Pistachio is yet to have a good petition on file. In light of the December 2nd case management conference, it's possible the hearing would be set at that time, but we're not sure. The last thing, it's related to the adjudication and it's premature, but they're getting ready to schedule the second public meeting related to the DWR facilitation. That's scheduled for October 4th, I believe 6 p.m. at the City Hall, like the last one. And the purpose of the second public meeting is to share and talk about the results from the stakeholder assessments. That's all I have on the adjudication at this time. Field any questions. Thank you.
Staff or directors, any questions? No. Okay, are there any questions from the public? All right, nothing, no one in person. How about online? Anybody indicating? Let's give them a few seconds. Okay, very good. Thank you, Jim. Let's move on to item G, General Manager and Staff Update. Water production.
Okay, as of today, the employees of the Water District have worked 509 days since the last recordable injury. As far as production, the metered production at the wells for the month of August, 238,655,000 gallons, 732.4 acre feet. The number that we do report to the State Water Resources Control Board is the metered water through the distribution system, which includes, that's considered consumption and all non-revenue water. That's water lost to leaks, flushing, blow-offs, et cetera. That number, 198,768,300 gallons, or 610 acre feet. Beginning in the month of June, there was a requirement from the state board to submit a preliminary report with just consumption, population, and the residential gallons per capita per day by the third business day of the month. So that preliminary report was submitted on September 1st. The full report is still being requested by the 28th of the month, and we did submit our full report on September 6th. The conservation results for August show that consumption was down 31.7% compared to August of 2013, the baseline year that the state established. The 20% conservation target that was established by this board in June of 2016, through the month of August, we are now at 23.4%, and that's essentially on the strength of the last 4 months being well over 30%. In response to the Governor Newsom's request for a voluntary 15% reduction to address drought conditions, the state board is also comparing the current water consumption to the same month in 2020. So if we compare our August 2022 to August of 2020, we've seen an 8% reduction in consumption. If we look at the past 4 years, August results, 2022 is much larger than the last 4 years. Consumption in 2021 was only 22.6% lower than the 2013 baseline year. 2020 was 14.7% lower, 2019 20.9% lower, and 2018 18.1% lower. So this year, again, the last 4 months, we're seeing from 30 to 35% reductions, which is really significant, especially considering the weather. I'm sure September maybe we won't be seeing 30%, but we'll see. Residential gallons per capita per day for the month, which we also report, 159.2, and again, this is both indoor and outdoor usage together. We had 3 new connections added during the month of August, which contributed $11,876 in capital facility fees, and these were the first 3 new connections of the new fiscal year, which started July 1st. Just a reminder, we did not have any last month. If there's no questions, I'll go into public outreach.
Proceed.
Have you seen any reduction due to the commercial people being told that they were supposed to back off some of the landscaping?
Not specifically, no, but I mean, we've seen, as you drive around, you're seeing some of the businesses, I'll point out McDonald's.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of, from a meter standpoint, looking at the amount of usage of commercial establishments.
Well, when I look at one of the numbers we report is commercial use versus residential use, and we're typically from residential, for multifamily and single family, typically is around 81 to 83% of any given month, and we're still in that range. So commercial and institutional still are around 17, 18%, but I don't know, where the breakdown between the numbers there, I just hadn't looked at it specifically between commercial and institutional.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm thinking is that some of the reductions in the commercial area, even after the ordinance goes away, they may choose not to replant the turf. And so we may see some permanent reduction in water usage as a result of this.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see some of the commercial businesses switch to xeriscape type landscaping. You're seeing with the new businesses that are coming in, obviously, have gone to that sort of art. They're required to do that, and it looks really nice. I mean, you look at the new Oasis Center, you look at the Kentucky Fried Chicken, the Dutch Brothers are all going with native landscaping. So,
yeah. Well, it seems to me I've seen some artificial grass pop up here or there as well.
Which is, so it's allowed.
It could all save us some water.
Yeah.
Okay,
Any other
other
comments?
questions for Dawn?
We'll go into public outreach. Okay, we didn't have a community collaborative meeting. It was, normally it would have fallen on September 6th, the day after Labor Day, but there was not one. As Mrs. Decker mentioned, I did put out a new GM column. It's titled The Cost of Water Explained. I put it both to the Daily Independent and the News Review, and both published it last week. And it is on our website as well. We continue to work with Providence Strategic Consulting to promote WaterSmart. As of this morning, there were 1,526 active accounts, which accounts for 11.8% of our customers. This is up from 11.5% last month when I reported. We had 1,974 customer alerts that were issued in August, and in the past 12 months, there have been 12,202 customer alerts sent out. Regarding the Junior Associate Board Member Pilot Program, Sierra San Superintendent Dave Ostash did report that he used their technology department to develop a query to all the students within the district who are 16 years of age or older. That's approximately 850 of those in the district. He also sent a similar message to the parents. As a result, we did get one application so far. Unfortunately, the person who submitted it said they weren't available for evening meetings, which obviously the board meets in the evening. So I did reach out to Dr. Hancock at Saracoso last week, and I just got a response before the meeting that he said he intends to email information to students that reside within the district service area, and he'll follow up and let me know when that's been done. So I would anticipate that we're going to get some responses. The applications are due by Wednesday, November 9th, so there's still plenty of time.
I did see that on social media today also on our website, so that was good.
Right, yeah, Providence has been promoting it. It's on our website, it's on Facebook, so yeah. That's it.
All right, booster stations and tank projects.
All right, Canyon Springs Enterprises, I have some pictures to go with some of this, has finished installation of the pump cans and suction piping for the booster station, and that's when they were forming the forms around the suction piping there, and I think the next one shows it done. And they have backfilled around all of that now, and they're starting work on the foundation. Let me see, what's the next picture I've got in there? That's kind of a picture looking to the west. You can actually see that they've backfilled, and you can see the gateway tank there in the background. So they've also been working on the communication tower foundations. They have those completed. They completed them last week. So they're waiting for that concrete to set. The tank, as you can see, has been erected there. The coating subcontractor has mobilized. There's the inside of the tank. There are sandblasting now, the inside in preparation for coating the interior. So that's a pretty cool picture. It shows all the appurtenances and stuff inside the tank you don't usually get to see. They will be mobilizing next month at the C-Zone tank to start erecting that new tank. And that's all I have right now, if you have any questions.
Any questions? Questions? All right, from the public? All right. Very good, thank you, Renee. Let's move on to financial status.
Okay, through August of 2022, we have actual revenue and we have debt service principal of $185,000.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Solar production.
Okay. For the fiscal year, we have savings of $50,649, which is about $500 greater than the guarantee. That's for phase one. For phase two, which is well 35, we have actual savings in August of $2,291, which is better than the guarantee of $1,994.
Okay, any questions? Thank you. Let's move on to conservation.
Conservation for the calendar year, we have 66 water waste reports received, 66 contacts made, 5 formal warnings, and 0 penalties.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Sorry, how many of those are repeats? Is that date on this chart?
It's hard to tell. Once they get to 3 repeats, we're given penalties, so
Okay,
for the most, if it's 1 or 2.
all right, thank you.
And also if a certain amount of time elapses, then the clock starts over again, yeah.
Yeah.
They may get a notice and then, I forget what the time is, but there's a certain amount of time, and if they don't have another notice in that time, then the clock starts over again, so,
But we do have a few that are usual customers.
yes, yeah. There are some repeat offenders, that's for sure.
All right, any other questions? Arsenic treatment facilities.
So the district has tentatively scheduled Pure Flow for November, and we're working with them to nail down the exact dates when they'll be on site. We also have reached out to them to find out exactly how much of the proprietary media is needed for each vessel, just to ensure that the district has enough on hand when they come up to replace it. Arsenic Plant 2 for the month of August produced 24,052,000 gallons.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Nope. Let's go to 8, operations.
For the month of August, we had 23 repairs and 57 replacements. The public may have noticed that the maintenance crew is working on PEG, that is in replacement of the laterals to stay ahead of the city paving projects. Also, this is the second month that the no-des is down, leaving our grand total at 8,542,475 gallons saved. We also exercised 138 valves, bringing our grand total to 681 for the year.
All right, questions?
I just have a comment. What was the purpose of the no-des truck, Jason?
The purpose of the no-des was to eliminate the water loss from flushing projects.
Okay. And the water was being flushed because it becomes stagnant, setting in a line, is that
Correct.
correct? So, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. So item 8, board comments and future agenda items. Director Rotora.
I would just like to extend my condolences to the Cordell family. Chuck was a true gentleman and a supporter of the people. I will miss him, and the public will miss him. Thank you.
Director Griffin.
I want to follow up with what Stan said. I'm going to miss Chuck. I think he was a great asset to this board, better to the community, and best to his family. He was a great friend. I want to thank staff. I think the article or the Facebook post was a great tribute, and it was heartfelt to me to see that posted by our staff. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Vice President Boyd.
I'm not sure I could dig up any better words than what have already been said. I miss Chuck as well, and condolences to the family. That's a great loss to the community, and of course to our board. Regarding future agenda items, I just wanted to appraise you. We do have some feedback from Mark Hildebrand regarding the rate study. He's estimating a December product as opposed to November. There's quite a bit on his plate, and we've asked him to add a few extra things to this effort, so it's going to take about 11 weeks from now. So
Okay.
we advised him that he said with a really, intense effort maybe earlier, we said, no, we want to get this right. Don't be stressing the system, work through it, get it right. We don't need it immediately. So it's better to get it right than get it wrong.
Okay.
Or get it, yeah. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Thank you, staff, for your support and your concise reports. I appreciate it very much. And Chuck, thank you. God bless you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call the open session closed at 7:15 p.m.
Wow.
Closed session to open at 7:25.
I guess it's raining pretty hard.
All right, we're going to call the open session open again at 8:46 PM. Mr. Worth.
The board met with staff and legal counsel on the items under executive session. No action was taken that requires disclosure under the Brown Act. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any last comments? All right, then we'll call the open session closed again at 8:46 PM. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.